Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I was going through in my brain what I wanted to do with this video because I've got a computer I wanted to build, and I was like, oh, am I going to do a how to build a PC 2025 edition, or is this a particularly interesting PC? And I was like, no, not really. I'm just going to build a PC. I've got some bits. I'm going to build it. So yeah, that's it. It's for a customer, but that's it. It's just a PC. Roll the intro. Right, let's start by unboxing things. And, oh good, I do have a knife over here. I like to unbox all the components before I start doing a build, because it just gets all the packaging out of the way. Unboxing things as you go is just a recipe for surrounding yourself with packaging and getting lost in all of it. I leave some of the last bits of plastic on just to keep it safe, but you get the idea. Before we start talking about what components are going in here, the budget is £1,200, and bearing in mind I'm in business to make money, so yeah, there is some profit built into there somewhere. I can't remember how much I ended up with. I think I ended up going a little bit tight on profit on this one. I don't make as much as I should when doing builds, but that's a me problem. But at any rate, that gives you an idea of why I've picked certain parts. So the SSD I've got here is a Kioxia 1TB SSD, and again, this is budget motivated. 1TB isn't a lot for a gaming PC. However, it's enough. It's enough to get started with, and storage is cheap and easy to add later on. So I stick a 1TB SSD in there, and the customer can easily add more later on. RAM, I've got a 32 gig, 6000 mega transfer. I think this is CL30. Yeah, 6000 mega transfer CL30 Corsair kit. This is the RGB stuff because the customer wanted some RGB on there. So decent RAM kit. 6000 mega transfer CL30 is a pretty safe bet. Regardless of any other timings on it, if you've got that baseline, you're probably going to have a kit that's not terrible. So that's why I aim for that. The CPU that's going in here is a Ryzen 5 7500F. The 7500F is a weird one. This is an AliExpress CPU. And this is basically a Ryzen 5 7600. However, it doesn't have the built-in graphics. These are really cheap to buy on AliExpress, which is why I've chosen this one. You can save some money and get something that's basically a 7600, but a bit cheaper. So the motherboard it's going into is this MSI B650 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. No particular choice on the motherboard. I just look for something that is well priced and is a B650, because pretty much all the B650 boards are pretty decent. Then in terms of sort of board features, we've got some not terrible VRM going on there, and also it's got built-in Wi-Fi, which is always preferable when building a customer PC, because while a lot of enthusiasts will get Ethernet to their desk, a lot of average gamers, a lot of average people, they're stuck on Wi-Fi. So having Wi-Fi built in, really, really handy. It's also nice just because it means they've got built-in Bluetooth, so they can use an Xbox controller via Bluetooth and stuff like that. We're also going to want that. I'll take these bits out as well. Spare fittings and things like that, I'll chuck in a spare box at the end of it to give to the customer. That's just cardboard and paper now. I will keep this box on hand just to build up the motherboard though, because everyone loves it when you build the motherboard up on top of the box. I always hate it when new motherboards don't have a built-in I/O shield these days. Any enthusiast board, this thing should be built in now like it is on the high-end boards. It's really annoying. Not because they're difficult to fit, just simply because it's just another thing that has to follow the motherboard around. Next we've got our GPU here. This is an XFX Swift RX 7800 XT. I'm a big AMD fanboy for graphics cards right now. Not just since the 9070. Myself and my colleague have been championing AMD for a while now, just simply because they put enough VRAM on their cards. And because a lot of people just still don't have faith in AMD, their graphics cards, which are perfectly capable cards, are incredibly good bang for buck. So this 7800 XT is an ideal card to fit into this gaming rig. There we go. The XFX ones, these aren't like the super expensive versions. It's not an Asus TUF or anything like that. However, they're good bang for buck. They look smart enough. It's going to do the job just fine. I like Corsair power supplies a lot. They're decent value for money, and you kind of just know that it's going to be good. That's generally a dangerous statement to have. Just like, oh, I know that brand will be good. It's just like, brand loyalty is slightly dangerous, you know. But just, I've never had issues with Corsair power supplies, broadly speaking. They're not immune to failure, of course, but you know that there's not going to be anyone shouting, going, oh, actually, that's not up to spec and stuff like that. It's an RM750E, latest version. These things have gotten really compact now, actually. Very nice. Fully modular. Job's done. Then for CPU cooling, I've got a Thermalright Assassin Spirit 120V2 here. This is a budget air cooler, but the Thermalright air coolers are fantastic pieces of kit. They are so cheap, and they really do the job. Unlock chill force here. This is the baby one. You can also get the Silent Assassin, I think, the Peerless Assassin. And the Peerless Assassin is good for like 180 watts. We're not cooling 180 watts here, so this guy will be absolutely fine. Dual fan tower with 4 heat pipes. These are great. They're nice and compact, and they look smart. It would be nice to have something with RGB on it, of course, but I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot about the cooler until the last minute, by which point I'd already spent the entire budget on just trying to fit in big graphics cards and stuff like that. Oh, then finally, I've got a Corsair Frame 4000 here. This is one of the newest iterations of the 4000. I thought I was buying a 4000D, but I think this is the 4000D as far as anyone is concerned now. It doesn't have the same feel that the 4000D had, with the nice top panel and the dust filter that had the little rubber Corsair clothing tag on it that I liked. But I do like what they've done with the side panel. The vented power supply shroud looks cool there. Is that what's the deal with that? That's not a dust filter, although it is a removable panel, so you could just make it an intake. It's just got a diffusion layer on it, so that would look really good with lighting behind it, but I'm not sure what their plan is for that. Perhaps there's an accessory to put illumination back there. Although even still, I still would have said just like make it a dust filter, because a dust filter also diffuses light. Cool. Right, let's put this to one side. Nice and lightweight though, this case. So I'll start by putting our CPU in. And the eagle eye among you might notice that there's some trace of thermal paste on this. That's because when I buy CPUs from AliExpress, I pre-test them, because occasionally I buy CPUs just in advance. Like, because I've used this one up, I'll order another one at some point just so it's on the way, because sometimes they take a few weeks, just so I've got one in stock. So because I keep them in stock, I test them when they arrive just to make sure everything's good. I haven't had a bad one yet, but that's why there's some thermal paste already on it. Then we'll chuck our RAM modules in. These are going to go in slots 2 and 4, which is the appropriate slots on basically any modern motherboard for the correct RAM channels. What? Okay, I put it in the wrong way around. Whew. For a moment, it looked like the RAM just didn't fit. And I was like, is this DDR4? How is that possible? It's okay. Now we'll buzz out the M.2 heatsink. Whoops, it's okay. And we'll stick this guy in. One SSD. Right, how does this auto fit thing work? There. Cool, that's done. And we'll remove the peel. Now I'm going to remove these brackets from the motherboard because the cooler we're using will use its own mounting hardware. And I'm also just going to add this other M.2 standoff onto the lower slot here, just so if the customer does come to fit another M.2 SSD, the mount is already there. As I mentioned, I will be giving the customer all the accessories anyway, but this just means that no one has to explain to them how you actually do the thing here. The thing is already there. For some CPU coolers, you should wait until the motherboard is in the computer before you mount them up, because it can block access to stuff, especially things like your CPU power cables. If you've got a big-ass air cooler, once you've mounted that over the top of everything, when you put it into the case, unless you've got tiny child hands, you will never get your EPS cables in. However, this cooler is a lot more realistically sized, so I'm not fussed about that. I think that's going to go on like that. I'm going to take a guess. I've done these a couple of times. See if I can do it without the instructions this time. Don't forget to take the sticker off. Everyone's done it at some point. Right, I am going to put thermal paste on. I'm just offering this up to make sure it's the right way round. And given that the Corsair logo is going in that direction, I'm going to put the Thermalright logo in that direction as well. And the MSI logo is kind of going in that direction. So yeah, I'm going to put it that way around. Doesn't technically matter. You can put it any way around you like. I'm a big believer in X marks the spot. And if you're not, well, you can do whatever thermal paste pattern you like. There we go, one CPU cooler. And I'll mount up the fans as well. These fans are going in a push-pull config. And for those of you playing along at home, oh yes, this is one of the cool ones as well. This is one of the things I like about this cooler. Take a look at these fans. What do you notice about them? So normally, when you run a cooler with a push-pull fan setup like this, one of your fans will be the correct way round and will look nice and pretty, but the other one on the back would go like that, and you'd see the back of the fan, which is ugly. You see the label sticker and the wire and the frame and stuff like that. However, Thermalright, for this cooler, the rear fan, they've supplied a reverse bladed fan. So as you can see on this one, the blades are reversed. So normally a typical fan like this one, you can see the profile of the blades on the rotor. They're scooping air and blowing it through the frame. They're blowing it toward the frame and toward the label. Whereas this reverse bladed fan, the blades are reversed, so they're scooping air and they're pulling it through and blowing it out the front of the frame. So this means that this one goes on the back and you get the nice front-looking profile of the fan on either side, and you still get through flow. So yeah, that's just a nice touch I like about this cooler. It's kind of cool that reverse-bladed fans are becoming a thing these days, because if you care about the aesthetics of your computer, having the fans all look like they're the nice, correct way around is just a nice thing. Not essential. It's just it's nice. I like it. Anyway, let's mount up these fans. And I'll just tidy up these fan cables as well. There we go. That's our motherboard built up. Oh, neat. Built-in GPU support. That's very cool. This is kind of funky. I guess this is why they call it a frame, because there's just all these holes around it. That must be what's contributing to the lightweight as well. Neat. It's a little bit flimsy. You know, there's lots of bending on stuff, but I don't mind that because just, again, the lightweight means a lot to me. As someone who owns 2 computer cases that are just far heavier than a computer should be, I've grown to appreciate lightweight on computers. So yeah, cool. This has come with all the standoffs pre-fitted. Those should all be in the right place by default. So I'm just going to drop the motherboard in there and just see if it fits. Might need to move these cables around the back. No, I think they'll move. That's fine. Okay, so this guy down here is correct. This one is correct, and this one is correct, and the back holes are fine. Normally, it's these 6 holes around the lower half of the motherboard that you've got to watch for. The top 3 are generally always in the same place, but sometimes this guy can be offset, or this guy can be offset, or this guy can be offset. So those are fine. So let's just back that out a moment and stick the I/O panel in. And when we put the motherboard in, we're going to pay special attention to these tabs sticking out of the I/O shield, because we don't want those tabs to go into the ports on the motherboard. Rookie mistake, that one there. So we're going to pay careful attention to make sure that doesn't happen. The problem is if that does happen, you probably won't notice until after you're done. And hey, look at that. It just happened. I'll take a picture of that just so you can see. So that's what you want to avoid. So we'll just back that out. And I'll just bend the tab upwards a little bit as I feed it back in. In an ideal world, you don't want to bend them up too far because they're supposed to press against the top of the ports on the motherboard to ground the I/O shield. So the I/O shield is properly grounded against the motherboard. But the reality is this is kind of a non-issue. There's metal contact everywhere in a custom-build PC. Grounding is not your problem. So, yeah, we're not super fussed. Some people get super evangelical and will just snap off those tabs or cut them off, but that leaves nasty sharp edges, so I don't like doing that. I'll dig into the accessory box and find the screws that came with this. Among other things, what have we got here? We've got some kind of fan adapters. We've got parts of the graphics card support, I think. A front panel adapter. That's kind of cute. That's a magnetic cover for something. And then there's another frame here that adapts. There's another frame here for adapting probably the front rails from 140 to 120 mil or something like that. And that looks like an insert. Yeah, that's a black insert that can go down along here. So yeah, interesting. I won't go into the gory details on all of those parts. This isn't a case review. That's what I'm looking for, motherboard screws. Right, now I'm going to get our power supply in. So before we drop this into the case, I'm going to plan out what cables I need and plug them in first. And the reason why I do this is that once the power supply is in the case, it's quite difficult to push all of the modular wires in properly. And it's really important that they're pushed in properly. So I tend to plan out what I'm going to need in advance, plug them in, and then fit it as if it were a wired supply. So we're going to need a 24-pin ATX. Let's see, that's a single PCI Express. What do we need on our card? Dual 8 pins. EPS connector, we want one of those. There's a 12 volt high power. Keep that with the rest. That's another EPS. We don't need two. Although I'll tell you what, just to please the comments section, I'll run two EPS connectors anyway. Like, unless you are running an absolutely top spec CPU, you don't need two EPS cables. The EPS cable, regardless of ratings, an EPS cable with from a decent power supply is good for 300 watts. You're fine. However, we'll run both of them because if you put both in, then whatever, I guess. So yeah, I'll stick them both in. This PCI Express is a pigtailed one, so we could run a single one of these, but with graphics cards, you do want to run separate cables if you can. It's not mandatory, but you really should. So let's see if we've got another single one. That makes me sad. We don't. Okay. That's a bummer. Right, and we don't have any serial ATA devices in here, but I'm gonna put the cable in anyway in case some accessories are added later on. Although the PCI Express 8-pin connector is technically only rated for 150 watts, the reality is that with a decent quality power supply like this, with big old 16 gauge wire on it, this guy will easily do 300 watts. So unless you've got an absolutely monstrous graphics card, again, we're talking flagships like an 80 class graphics card, one of these pigtails to dual 8 pins, that would be totally fine. We could get away with that on our 7800 XT, no problem. However, again, we've got the cables here, so we'll use them. It also means that if the customer upgrades to a big boy graphics card later on, then the cables are already there. The hell is that? That's a bit how you doing. Fine, I guess. Don't know how much I care for the front panel on this. I'd rather the front panel be up the top. Put it on top of the computer like a normal thing. That's my bias anyway. Okay, let's switch to the 3/4 view camera because there's going to be a lot of turning the case around for this section. I'm just going to take off all these panels because I think they all come off so you can arrange things. Neat. Okay, that's kind of neat. So we've got these adjustment screws here, and if I undo these, I can slide this rail in and out to fit 120, 140, or apparently 160mm fans, whatever that is. I've not seen a 160, but I guess they exist. I'm going to undo these cable tidies and just pull out the front panel stuff first. We'll organize that all in a moment. And let's drop in our power supply. Now, much to the annoyment of the comments section, I'm going to put the power supply in with the fan pointing up. And the reason why I do that is because then the customer doesn't have to clean the bottom dust intake. And I had a comment the other day on a previous build of mine where someone was just like, "Oh, you put the power supply in upside down. Dust will fall into the fan." My guy, the dust isn't in the computer, it's outside. Like, sure, some dust gets into the computer, but there's an awful lot more dust outside getting hoovered up through the bottom here than there is inside the case. No one cleans the bottom filter. Ask me how I know. Oh, that's interesting. They've put thumb screws for the power supply. Oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Mainly because I can't use those thumb screws because they're not in the reverse positions. So I have to remove the thumb screws or I've got to flip the power supply. Okay, I'll flip the power supply. I've got no issue just taking those thumb screws out, but while I've literally just had a rant about putting the power supply in with the fan pointing upwards, I don't think I'm going to stand on that principle enough to remove a feature of the case. That's kind of a hill that I don't need to die on. Let's start doing some basic organization. Cable tidying starts from the very beginning of the build. So we'll pull this up and round. And that is going to need to curl around that way. So I'll put a bend in that. And I want to try and avoid the cables being twisted. That's going to go like that. Alright. I'm not going to bother tying these in properly quite yet because they'll get undone and done up a million times as I put everything into position. Right, what's that? Audio. That's going to go along the bottom. Front USB 3 is just below the ATX connector, so that's going to follow this guy up. That's a cool, very flat cable. Front panel header goes up there. And our USB 3 is probably along the bottom as well. Let's have a look. Yes, it is. Right, we've got our two EPS cables that are going to go up the back. This SATA cable, I'm just going to stick another wire tie around again. And we're just going to leave this guy hanging out around the back here. And PCI Express power, I'm going to bring over here, I think. And that's probably just going to sweep in from the side. Excellent. Right. Let's flip that over and see how it looks. That's going to need some encouragement to fit. Come back to that in a moment. Alright, can I find some slack on that USB Type-C? I think I can. We just reroute that around the front of the ATX connector. That should be alright. And I don't think there's going to be much else going on here, actually, so I'm just going to go ahead and plumb these in. As much as everyone has rose-tinted lenses for old computers and stuff, modern ones are just so much simpler. Something that you guys might find is conspicuously absent right now is a plan for additional case fans. And yeah, I noticed that this case hasn't even come with sort of a token gesture, one at the front, one at the back, as a minimum standard. So I'll have to fit something to it. I was planning on putting some RGB fans in this though, but I'm probably gonna do that after the fact. So we'll get the basic build done and then I'll figure out what I'm doing for case fans. Right. This is coming together dreadfully fast, folks. I'm putting in the graphics card. Get these power cables in, and we want to get a nice swoop up from the bottom is what looks the nicest. You can have them come in down from the top, but sweeping up from the bottom I think looks nicer. Cool. Right, let's tidy those around the back. Right, and we don't need this graphics card support, so I'm going to take it out. Right, that's our basic build done. It's a shame I didn't get this in black. Upgrade for another day. Nice. I've just gone digging around and I've got a pair of Corsair 140mm light loops here, and I've got a 120mm light loop that I can stick at the back, and some controllers for them. So this is fairly old kit, this. I'm going to just throw it in just because I said to the customer I'd add in some RGB, and so far the only RGB we've got is the RAM. So, but if we stick some Corsair fans at the front and back, that'll add a finishing touch to the case. So let's get this stuff put in. This is the most annoying type of Corsair RGB, where we have two boxes here. We've got a box that's the actual LED controller, But you can't plug fans into that. You have to plug that into an expander, which then you plug your fans into. And both of these boxes require power. So we have two boxes with this cabling to plug the fans into. Ugh. Corsair have started fixing this with the Corsair Link system. But, Corsair, what was your plan? Why though? Why? Getting triple 140s at the front would look nice. However, these are the only fans I've got. And to be honest, these are expensive fans, man. Give me a break. I'm chucking these in for free. Am I going insane? Are these set up for, like, those Bizarro 160 mils? They must be. I hate it. Why would you do that? Corsair, explain yourselves. How do I change this? Have I got to take the front panel off? I hate it. Why would you not have them set up for 140s out the box? This front panel doesn't move to one side in any kind of satisfactory manner. Ah, okay, there we go. Now I can back these screws off and change them. There we go. That's kind of weird. They've got two settings. 120 or 140/200. This makes no sense. I'll use the fan as a template to make sure that they're exactly the correct width. Because if all four screws are in, then it has to be aligned. Corsair cases usually have kind of like roundish cutouts to make sure that the fan rails don't cover their light loops, whereas this one doesn't have that, which isn't super impressive. Like, this is the thing, it's just like, you know, this is a Corsair case with Corsair fans, and all the modern Corsair fans have these light loops around the outside, so it's one of those classic, did you guys actually test this moments, which is an acid test I find a lot of cases failing, where you put it in and you're like, okay, it functions, but man, you'd imagine that at some point a Corsair tester would have said, hey, I'm building this Corsair case with these Corsair fans and it's covering up the LEDs, which is kind of the whole dealio with Corsair equipment. So, yeah, not the end of the world, but yeah. There we go. I think there's a pretty good aesthetic to just the dual 140s there. I think that matches with the strip along the bottom, because then it looks like this is just part of the compartment, so to speak. I'm pushing this fan at the back as low as I can to try and get it to line up with the CPU cooler as best I can. Not that it really matters in terms of airflow, but I try to balance the lines in the case. If the fans look like they're more aligned with each other, that's a bit more pleasing to the eye. And that's not perfect, but it's just a little step rather than going up in a diagonal line at least. Right, now we have to plumb all of this in and make the back of the case look like a bomb site because RGB spaghetti. I'm not thrilled about this either, but the end result looks nice, so whatever. I'm going to plumb in the fan wires first because those will not be going back to our RGB controls. Those will be going back to the motherboard, so we can get those out of the way. There's some nice little hooks along the back here that I can run this fan cable along just to keep it in the right place. It'll still need a zip tie to hold it in, but it makes it look a bit more deliberate. There we go. I could spend another hour diligently trying to zip tie these wires in perfect straight lines into places, but personally I believe there are diminishing returns with cable tidying. My interest is that the cables stay in place when you take the covers off. What I don't like is when you take a cover off and all the cables go bleh. However, if everything is tied back so you can take the cover off, change things, and then put the cover back on, that's what's important to me, and that is achieved. So, let's put the covers on. Swish! Right, it is 40 minutes past close time, and I want to go home, so we're going to wrap this up. Let's turn it on. Bam! There's our front lights fluorescing, looking good. Yeah, that's all right. And are we posting? Yeah, our debug LEDs just went out, so we have posted. Excellent. You'll just have to take my word on it that it works, but, you know, if it doesn't work, then there'll be a no post on Sundays video about this. All right. I'm pretty pleased with that result. I think that looks really swish. It would have been nicer to have the air cooler in black. I'll concede that point. But I'll level with you. It's what I had in stock at the time. So, yeah, I might change that out if there's time before the customer comes to collect it. However, because, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I really wish that was in black. But it's going to be a lot less noticeable when this is in a bedroom and it's not under studio lighting. And at that point, the RGB is just going to illuminate everything. And the nice thing about RGB is because it's colored lighting, that's going to apply the color on everything. That's the advantage of RGB. It gets to be whatever color you want, whether that's white or black. So, right. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye.